Hello, everybody. How's it going today? It is Caitlin here with another episode of Squad Talk. So, Squad Talk is our weekly live talk show where you get to meet amazing women entrepreneurs. So, some of our guests, like today's guests, have been featured on things like The Today Show and BuzzFeed. Some of them are running multi-million-dollar businesses, and others are still early in their journey and they are kicking butt. So, these women are here to share their stories with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not all about selling the sizzle, it's about selling the truth. And answer your questions. So what makes this show special is that when you're watching Squad Talk, you're also part of the action. So every now and then I'm going to ask a question, and these are called Squad Talk confession questions. And these are questions that I want you to answer too. So when that happens, you'll see down below, you can answer in the comment section, or if you're watching the replay, then just answer in the comments. Okay, so I'm beyond excited to get started. Today's theme is the mental game. And every entrepreneur, we hear it again and again and again, how important the mental game is and mental health is for business success. It's all about having the right mindset. And today's guest has taken that even a step further. So Kayley Reed is the founder of Wear Your Label, which is a fashion brand and a business that's built around mental health. Wear Your Label has created some major buzz. Ever considered getting into fashion or e-commerce, then this is an episode you definitely want to watch. So now I'm going to not tell you anything else. I'm going to introduce you to Kayley and let you tell her more about her story because it's an amazing story. Hi, Kayley.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for having me. My name is Kayley Reed. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Wear Your Label. And what we do is really simple. In theory, we combine fashion and mental health. So we design positive products to create conversations and visibility around mental health with the goal of ultimately helping end the stigma. We've created kind of an online community where people can share their stories and feel connected to others who are going through the same thing. And we donate back to different mental health charities and initiatives throughout the whole process. So fashion's our medium, but mental health is really our cause and the thing that we
I love that so much. So if anybody has watched Squad Talk before, you know that the first question I typically ask is, give us your elevator pitch. But Kayley just completely crushed it. That is a perfect elevator pitch. So I'm going to skip along to the next question. And Kayley, you've been all over the place in the last few months. I know you just got back from New York. You were here in Nova Scotia for Fashion Week. So tell us, what have you been up to?
Yeah, the past couple of months have been super busy. At the same time, I think things are always busy when you're building a startup. There's never really a downtime, but the past couple of months have been intense. I've been doing a lot of speaking. So one thing that I do is I go to schools and fundraisers and I share my mental health story. It's a big part of why I do Wear Your Label. So 2.5 years ago, I was struggling with an eating disorder, and building Wear Your Label is one of the things that really actually helped me in my recovery. And so one of my kind of biggest things over the past couple months has been doing these speaking engagements, both in the US. I was in San Francisco and New York over the past few weeks, and then also doing fashion shows. So I did Atlantic Fashion Week last week, and then we were in Ottawa a few weeks ago. And what we do at our fashion shows is a little bit different. We cast role models instead of fashion models. So we ask all of our models to fill out a application that explains a little bit about why they're passionate about ending the stigma, maybe to share what their mental health story is. And then we cast people kind of on their bravery and their willingness to be open versus their height or size or whatever, is typically casted at people. So that has been kind of the busy things, the exciting things. And then as always, just like a lot of work, a lot of grinding. It's almost Christmas. So as an e-commerce, we are super busy with that, new launches of products. And I am looking forward to 2017.
I love so much of what you just shared. So tell me, you have a really interesting origin story. You talked about it a little bit, but before we jumped on the video, you were saying that you were part of this was part of a university initiative and this came out of that. Now, I know some of our viewers, some of them are already entrepreneurs, some are toying with entrepreneurship and wondering what the first steps are to get started. So can you share a little bit about what you learned in that program and how that helped you have the confidence to take what was an idea and a school assignment and turn it into a business?
Yeah, I think that I was really lucky in the sense that when my friend and I started this, we were both university students and we were able to get support from the university at the time. So once we graduated, we actually were accepted to a business accelerator program, which was part of the University of New Brunswick. And we got funding and mentorship for 3 months to really turn this idea and this side project into a real business. And I consider myself super lucky because I don't think a lot of people get that support. It's not always the right fit for the company that you're building. Us as a clothing and e-commerce brand, we weren't really a right fit for a lot of tech startup accelerators. So that was a huge piece in really elevating us from this idea to actually being able to call ourselves a business. And I think it was less about like the actual things that we learned than the way we were taught to think about things. And I say that by saying that, I mean that we were kind of instilled with this idea that if you are passionate about something and you are willing to put in the time and learn how to make something work, then you probably can, because one of the bigger barriers is really just like the work ethic and patience and, putting in those hours and being willing to learn things yourself and do things yourself in the beginning from the get-go. It's easy to see a lot of startups, raise these massive fundraising rounds and building these big teams and going from 0 to 100 in weeks or months. And if you're not in that world, it can be kind of discouraging. But the program, I think one of the biggest things that the mentors taught us was just to keep grinding it out. And if you have, the right support system, the right advisors, you have the right skills, and you have a partner with the right skills, then you can make good things happen.
I absolutely love that. One of the messages that I've been really kind of championing lately is the importance of patience. Because I think that we have all been kind of sold this misleading reality around how to build a startup, how to build a business that is supposed to grow and become a legacy business. And we're told that it happens quickly. And that, if you're not going massively fast, that you're dying. And I love that because you guys started around the same time we did 2.5 years ago. And it takes time.
Yeah.
And the entrepreneurs that are still here are the ones that put in the time. One of my favorite things is the founder from Airbnb. What's the exact quote? He says, "We were a 830-day overnight success story," because it took them just under 3 years to get people to believe in what they were doing, to get funded to make it happen. A lot of people would have given up. And most people do give up far before. They think, "Oh, I'm not hitting these milestones, and I'm obviously this means that I'm failing." So I love that. I absolutely love that. So here's a question that I love asking entrepreneurs, because I think that it can help so many other entrepreneurs. What is one thing that you wish somebody would have told you when you started your business? One thing that you've learned that you wish somebody would have told you?
I think it's exactly what we were just touching on. This idea that there's no such thing as an overnight success. And when you're building these startups, it can be, so easy to get caught up in the hype and people getting excited around you and things happening around you. And sometimes you can see all these moving pieces and feel like you're not moving forward fast enough. But at the same time, everybody is just showing their highlight reel. Like what you see on social media, what you see in press releases, for the most part, is just like all the good stuff. And I think it's very few and far in between where we get real about the challenges and everything that it took to get to that place, which is why I love being here and talking with you about this, because it is so important to talk about those things. But yeah, patience is key. There's no such thing as an overnight success. Even the ones that you think are, overnight successes typically aren't. Typically took so much time and hard work and team effort to get to that place. So I think taking a step back and just realizing, okay, the place that you're in now is where you're supposed to be, and it's okay if you're not moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. You can still get there.
I love that. So on that point, you said that, a lot of people are sharing their highlight reel. You're seeing the press releases. So I've got kind of two questions for you that back to back, I think are going to show kind of the polarity of what it's like to be in business. So you've had a lot of successful wins in the last couple of years. So what is the one that you are the most proud of? What would be on your highlight reel?
There's two. I mean, yeah, there's a lot that I'm really proud of. But one, it was showing at New York Fashion Week. We had an independent designer showcase, and it was something that I just never would imagine would have happened, especially in 2 years. And the other is partnering with Joe Fresh. So this past year we did, thank you. We did a nationwide event series in collaboration with Joe Fresh here in Canada. So that was, a pretty major thing to be able to work with one of the industry leaders in retail here in Canada.
Those are such huge wins. So then this question I think is even sweeter and juicier. So during all of this, what was your mental health like, and how did that affect your business?
Yeah, totally. So important to talk about because, I often say that starting Wear Your Label was both the best and worst thing for my mental health. The best in that the work that I do and that we do here is specifically to raise awareness about this issue and to create those connections with people and help us, remind ourselves that we are not alone in what we're going through. And so to have built that community has been so helpful. But it's also been the worst thing for my mental health because building a business is really hard. And it's stressful and overwhelming and exhausting, and something that you can't really plan for. No matter how many business plans you make, no matter how many strategies you write out, there's still always going to be things that come out of nowhere and you just have to deal. And so I'm really glad and really lucky that I've gotten through the worst of my mental health issues prior to starting Wear Your Label. So I'm definitely happier and healthier than I've ever been. At the same time, business takes such a huge toll on a person's mental health. And there's days that I, want to sleep in and don't want to go to an event and, cry for 2 hours over the silliest email that a customer sent because they were upset about something, or there's every little possible thing that could make a person feel stressed out or overwhelmed. It happens in business. But at the same time, I think there's comfort in knowing that other people are also going through that and other people have gotten through that. And so to be able to share that and talk about it, I think is really key, because I know when I was starting out, I would feel these things and be like, oh my gosh, our startup isn't successful. I'm so stressed out. I'm not even paying myself. How is this even a good thing? And I'd look around and I would think that everybody else had everything together. But in reality, when you start those conversations, every single person has their own thing and everybody is going through shit in some way or another. So I think it's just so important to be real about it because we all get it.
Absolutely. One of friends of mine, I won't mention what their startup is, but they have pivoted several times in their journey. And recently they ended up getting Kylie Jenner on as a customer. And so they that's a massive win for them. They also have Vogue and what's the big men's magazine? Is it HQ, EQ?
GQ?
GQ. And this is 3 years into their journey. And I remember looking back at them when I was just getting started and thinking okay, they've got it all together. They're going to think I'm a hot mess. They don't know where my head's at. And we met up at a party and of course a couple drinks and everyone's sharing.
Yeah.
And they shared how they feel and all the challenges that they were going through. And this was before they made their second pivot. And I think that one of the things that is so valuable, and this is why we put together the Squads program, is surrounding yourself with people that are on the same journey you're on and that are at the same stage, because it's really good to learn from experts that are 10 steps ahead of you. Learning from them is really good, but you're not going to be able to have the context and their experiences. Oftentimes you forget about the things that you picked up at the earlier stages. Like even when I talk to companies now, they're like at the beginning of their journey, I feel like I'm not as good a touch point for them as connecting them with another company that's at the beginning. I can tell them what mistakes not to make, but I don't sympathize as much with those pains because I've been out of that for a while now. So it's like almost like your memory for what it's like and your memory for like what the struggles are gets erased over time as you're dealing with today's struggles.
Totally.
So all of this to say, you know, just surround yourself with people that are at that journey, that are on that journey too. Awesome. So I want you to share. So one of the things that we shared about you, and as a way to get people excited about this talk, was you have been able to get some major press coverage. And I would love if you were to talk about that, and if you could share your strategy and some tips you've learned along the way, because I know that some of our viewers would love to know more about that.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of a really daunting thing, and something that I've really taken for granted over the past year is just our relationship with different press outlets and the press that we have gotten. But it started out because I guess a year and a half ago, we were, you know, a few months into the startup, and we're only making like 5 sales a week online. It was all local. We weren't able really to pay rent. Everything seemed super slow. And we were like, okay, did we make the right decision in trying to do this full time? Like maybe it just isn't a thing. Maybe it will never be a thing. And I got so frustrated. I was like, okay, well, the one thing that I am going to focus on for the next month is getting us featured in some sort of press outlet, anywhere, any press, someone please tell our story. So I started researching different reporters and like following people on Twitter, reading different articles on like BuzzFeed and People and like all those magazines that I was hoping to be featured in. And I would find out like which reporter wrote that article. And then I would follow them on like LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever I could find them on social media, just to like somehow get a little bit on their radar. I would find their email addresses because Google is a wonderful thing, and just like cold email people and send them our story and tell them about, you know, how we were both struggling with mental health challenges, and we decided to build this brand out of that. And now we're like raising awareness and tackling this issue of stigma. And I spent probably like 2 or 3 hours every day for like a month doing that.
So it's hustling. You had to put the hustle in.
Yeah. And there wasn't really much response, honestly. Some people would email back and be like, sorry, like we're not writing about that right now. And other people would just totally ignore the email, which now I totally understand, because as somebody who's on the other end getting a lot of emails, I get it now. But I was just so determined to get somewhere. So kept kind of doing that same tactic of like reading a similar article, finding the reporter, following them on social media, and sending them an email. And finally, someone from the Today Show got back to us, and she was like, I love your story. Like, I want to share your brand with our online community. When can you do an interview? And I was like, oh my gosh, like right now. So we did the interview like literally within an hour of her emailing back. And the article went live, and in my head, that was like the end all be all. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. So many people were like emailing us and messaging us on Facebook being like, congratulations. And what I didn't understand about the press world at that time is that once one outlet picks you up, it's like a domino effect. Like everybody else wants to cover the story because it's like the thing of the moment. So within like 24 hours, we had like BuzzFeed and MTV and 17 magazine and People magazine and like all these outlets emailing us for interviews or rewriting the interviews they'd already read and sharing them on their outlets. And it was just like a week of this really intense press. And that whole experience was like super overwhelming and amazing and like a dream, but also a nightmare, because we all of a sudden had like tens of thousands of eyes on us that we weren't expecting, and like all these new sales that we weren't expecting, and we had to like rearrange our supply chain, and everything was like really, really great, but behind the scenes, it was like, oh my gosh, how do we deal with this? Anyways, we ended up getting a publicist who has been working with us for the past year, and she has been like an absolute lifesaver.
Nice. So like what I'm hearing there, a couple of takeaways. One is that you shared your story. And I think that that is something that when it comes to pitching press, like don't just share your solution. Don't just pitch them as though they're going to be an end user of your product. Pitch them as though they're human and you're human and you're sharing your story, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for content marketing too. I think that a lot of time where people have been creating this really informational, like educational content. And I think that the future of winning the content game isn't about educating so much as it's about documenting your experience as a team and an entrepreneur and your customers and sharing their stories. And what do you think about that? Do you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also think like something that's important is just not focusing on getting the press necessarily, but doing something press worthy. So
Love
for
it.
us, like we were kind of at this like desperate moment where we knew that that would be a make or break it. But we had done like 8 months of work of building this brand that people were interested in and wanted to talk about. It wasn't just that like day one, we were like, okay, how do we get press? It's like, no, you have to do something that's, you know, that's worthy of people talking about, and then go out and try and get press.
That's fantastic. So take those tips, folks. It's like you just need to land that one and it could start a domino. So keep hustling. And it takes time. She was like spending hours a day on this and building the relationships. They don't just, you know, one of the things that I see a lot of people do is they'll what we call spray and pray. And it's like, I'm just going to send this to every single media outlet that there is and hope like hell that somebody picks it up. Keep doing it. Keep building the relationship. So when Kayley and I were introduced by a mutual advisor. And the reason that she was introducing us was because we'd both been kind of going through a similar challenge in our business at the same time. And so to put a little context around that, like my co-founder and I had recently decided that we weren't going to do the business together anymore. And Kayley was in the process of figuring out if her co-founder was going to exit the company, and if so, how. And you know, I was really fortunate in my case with my co-founder because I had watched my husband and his business partner have a bad breakup. And I knew that I didn't want that to happen. And I knew that from the very beginning with my relationship with my co-founder, we talked about everything. And to this day, even though she stepped away from the company, one of my favorite human beings, and just so proud to know her and have had her been part of our journey. And so Kayley, having gone through, you know, a co-founder breakup, what advice would you have for other women who are looking to bring on a partner? And this is a Squad Talk confession question. So ladies, if you're watching this and you've had a partnership or you've watched partnerships, share your advice that you would give for other people who are considering bringing on a partner.
It's a really great question. And I think it's one of the harder things for me to talk about right now because it is still really fresh. But one thing that I've kind of always thought to be true is that when you are starting a business with someone and you decide to be co-founders or partners in this, you're basically like signing up to marry that person. In a lot of cases, like you're going to spend more time with that person than you are your family or, you know, your boyfriend or girlfriend or partner at the time. And that can be really overwhelming. It's definitely not easy to build a business alone. And there are a lot of benefits to having a co-founder, but it can also be challenging. And I think making sure that you and your co-founder have an aligned vision for the company, and you want to go the same places, and you agree on like how the company is looking in 2 or 3 or 5 years is a big a big thing, but also that your personalities and, you know, your strengths and weaknesses balance each other out. I think like making sure that you have somebody who can play strength to the things that you suck at, and you can play strength to the things that they suck at is really important. Otherwise, you're just going to be doing the same things and you're going to have to hire somebody else to do that thing. So that was big for us, and one of the reasons why, yeah, like it's so true, because you're going to be like, in the beginning, most co-founders are doing all of the work, whether it's building the website or sending emails or answering customer service or, you know, networking at events. Like, there's every little thing, and if you're not good at it, you want to make sure that you have somebody who is good at it.
Absolutely. There's the saying in tech that like the dream team of founders is like when you've got the hacker and the hustler. So you've got your, like, you know, a wizard developer, and then you've got the business person that can go out and like get the venture capitalists, get the deals. But I'm a big believer that you need those two people, but I think you need a third person too. I think you need the marketer, because I think that oftentimes the person who's the business savvy one, who can sit in a boardroom and sell the vision, and then can go and make sure that all of your financial projections are right, and like that business minded person won't necessarily be the right person to build the brand and to make sure that your marketing is super tight. And I think that, as especially right now, as the marketing landscape is changing, that having that person whose mindset is like driven by the marketing initiatives on a core team is essential. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. And another thought that just kind of came to me is like when I was building Wear Your Label, my co-founder and I had met, and the idea came up very organically, and we just very organically started it together. It was never like one of us started it and then recruited the other. And so I think that that experience is different than some people who come up with the idea on their own and they start it and then they're looking to recruit a co-founder. And that's something that I haven't experienced. But I think that that could almost be more difficult, is trying to find somebody who, you know, didn't give birth to the idea, essentially, who can be as committed and can be as passionate and wanting to make things happen.
Absolutely. It is. I mean, it's rare. And I mean, there's a few teams I can think of where they just got that perfect balance. But oftentimes we attract people that share similar viewpoints to us and see the world in the same way that we do. And what that means is sometimes you see teams where, like you said, there isn't that counterbalance, because they're all in the same industry and they all saw the same problem. And that can make for good dynamics in terms of like internal policy, but I think that that can make it challenging when it comes to having all your bases covered, because yeah, you share so many of the same skills that there's blind spots in your business.
Yeah.
It's tricky. So anyway, one last question. So what is your big, hairy, audacious goal for 2017? Or what can we expect to see from you in 2017? What should people be watching out for?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that I'm going to be focusing on a lot actually is video and content, and really continuing to share the stories that have built the Wear Your Label brand, but in a new way. So something we do right now is the Role Model Initiative, where people can submit their mental health story and we set up a photo shoot and share their story on the blog. Blogs are kind of out now. I think everybody and their dog has a blog. So working more on video content and just finding more engaging ways to share those people's stories and bring this community that we've built together in a more organic way is kind of what 2017 is going to be about.
That's fantastic. And there's some great apps, and I'll have to remember what it is, and when I do, I'll comment, that allow you to live stream. So you could be doing something like this, where maybe you interview one of those role models and you could share it with your community via social platforms. There's a really great app that lets you disseminate it to all of your different platforms. So you can be watching it live on Facebook, or you can be watching it live broadcast on a landing page that you have. So I'll have to figure out what that is, and I'll share it in the comments below. But I think that's what 2017 is about. I think that a lot of marketers should take note, because what we want to see in 2017 is like less broadcasting and less telling us stuff and more engaging with us and showing us the, like, you know, documenting, showing your journey. I think that that's the stuff that people are really hungry for.
Totally. And I think it's kind of funny too, now that I like think more about this question, because the past couple months for me have really been toning down a little bit and taking a step back and looking from the outside in. And so in kind of the startup world, we talk so much about hustle and what the next big thing is, and always innovating and always being fresh and new and always just like putting stuff out. And it can be really challenging and overwhelming to consistently try to be your A game all of the time, always creating new stuff. And so honestly, like what my goal for the past couple months has been to just make the business more profitable and more sustainable and like growing more organically, which sounds so boring, but is like a real thing that I think is really like valuable for people to think about, is like, okay, how is your business doing? Like, forget about these big, massive, like visionary dreams. While those are super important to have, like, what about your goal for like the next week or the next month? Like, how are you gonna keep what you're doing afloat and like make it bigger and better every time?
I love that. I love that. I think that especially for women entrepreneurs, there's studies that show that women entrepreneurs are really good at making lists, but we're not as great at like setting a hard goal and then reaching that goal. So we're good at like figuring out like, how do we take this project and break it up into like, you know, 30 pieces and then delegate it out. But when it comes to like, well, why are we even working on that project? Like, what's that going to help us accomplish? What goal is that going to help us reach? I love the idea of only looking so far ahead and making all of these incremental improvements. That's brilliant.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, so one of the things we like to do is we call it our speed round. And essentially what it is I'm going to ask you 5 questions. It's Family Feud style. And I want you to answer as quickly as you can or say pass. And this is just a great way for our viewers to get to know you a little bit more, and it's fun. So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, first question. What is the one app that you can't live without?
Oh my gosh, it's called Snug. I just downloaded it like a week ago, and it essentially lets you plan out your Instagram feed before you post it, so you know what your Instagram feed is going to look like.
Instagrammers are going to love that. So aside from wearing your label, who is your favorite fashion brand?
I really love Free People.
What song is your go-to right now?
Anything Christmas.
Nice. What is one skill that all entrepreneurs need to have?
Ooh, patience.
Awesome. And we're at time, but I'll ask you the last one anyway. Who is your business idol?
I love Sophia Amoruso, who wrote Girl Boss.
I know. I'm in her Facebook group. Are you in her Facebook group?
No, but I need to join.
She has a secret Facebook group, and I've been chatting with her. Because you can actually like interact one-on-one with her.
What?
I'll
my gosh.
you. Yeah.
Okay, so cool.
Okay, so if viewers want to find out more about Wear Your Label, where can they go?
Wearyourlabel.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kayley, so much for taking time to share with us today. Everyone who watched, if you have any questions for Kayley, you can post them below. One thing we've noticed about using this software, this is our 3rd time doing one of these interviews, is there's a bit of a delay in how long it takes to actually have the questions get posted and when we see them. So we'll make a little bit of small talk. We'll give you a few minutes, and if you have any questions, post them. And if not, Kayley and I will sign off. But I'm just refreshing now to see if any of those questions come up. Cool. So yes, I'll invite you to Sophia's Facebook group, and she's got some cool things in the works too. I think there's some really awesome stuff to come from the Girl Boss community.
She is super interesting to me. And with everything, like with her stepping away from the brand, from Nasty Gal, and then continuing to completely rock it with like her own brand is really cool.
Totally. So we have one question from Sarah. She asks, Kayley, what does your shirt say? Could you show us the goods? What does your shirt say?
Yeah. So I wore this shirt specifically for today, and I forgot to show you guys. It says, "Babe, you're a boss."
I love that so much. A while ago, we don't use this tagline anymore, but when we first had done our rebrand, our tagline was "Be the boss," and I always love that. Like, I love that tagline. I love being the boss.
Amazing.
So I don't see any other cues here. So ladies, we're going to assume that you have gotten all the great goodness from Kayley today. And again, if they want to follow you, Kayley, where do they go?
At wearyourlabel or wearyourlabel.com.
Awesome. Okay, have a great day, Kayley. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.